Hey, what's up,
Yo.
everyone? Welcome to another. Okay.
Yo. Okay.
Couldn't help
Fucking
myself.
God damn. It is what it is. This
Take
takes any
three.
reason. Yeah, I don't care.
Sorry.
Welcome to the Worker Co-op's Guide to Macro. Oh
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
we're gaming.
TM.
All
Here we
right.
go.
Here's
Oh
some.
The
God.
glossary.
Yeah, here's some general terms, cause the yeah, hopefully you guys know most of these, but and also, obviously, like there's not a dictionary definition for any of these, so I made the definition for all these as they work in my mind. You might have a different definition in like your head canon. Somebody watching this might have a different definition in their head canon, but this is just what I came up with. Um, am I gonna read all these out loud?
I mean, I screenshotted it in case I wanted to reference it or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
All of these
recording,
are
we can
pretty
always look it
known
back
terms.
over.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
true.
fine. All right. Oh, so let's do some game theory. Um,
Hell yeah.
so I took some fighting game theory. This is from Smash Ultimate. It's a fighting game concept. So neutral game is how both players attempt to land their first punch, right? They do spacing, they do dancing, right? Back and forth, try and break into each other's space, maybe look for like
Mhm.
punish grabs, stuff like this, whatever. And then they look to start their punish game, right? And they just try to do as much damage as possible to their opponent every single time, right? And they want to pick up guaranteed damage. Um, when you're comboing, right? Just gotta keep going, right? Especially if they let you until you get the kill. Um, then the person who is getting comboed needs to somehow break it, right? Um, obviously, obviously, League of Legends is not a fighting game, famously. Um, but the idea of neutral game and punish game do apply. Um,
Yeah.
so just for some more overview on this idea, a perfect neutral game means hitting your opponent at every possible opportunity and getting hit 0 times in response. A perfect punish game would mean that every time your opponent makes a mistake, you would kill them. In theory, a perfect neutral game would mean that you could literally never lose, right? But in reality, punish game will affect the neutral game, right? And the choices made during the neutral game, because of how scary it is, um, to get predicted, right? To get punished. Um, yeah, so for example, in Smash Melee, right? If you go for a jab against your opponent and you trade positively,
Mm.
um, you're going to keep doing it, right? It's a
Yeah,
positive
true.
feedback loop, right? If you do a jab into your combo and they keep eating it, you're just going to keep doing it because it's what's working.
Mm.
If your opponent predicts what you're going to do and kills you, you're going to be less likely to go for it again. And now, whether or not the jab is like correct within your head canon of the matchup and how you streamline it and break it down, and how like people on the internet like explain their opinions about, oh, this matchup works this way, right? I mean, when you're obviously like playing a real match and you just got your fucking shit wrecked, um, you're gonna feel very different about it, right? There's a real emotional reaction to getting predicted,
Oh, yeah.
and so you're likely gonna change your game plan. And so, you know, the neutral game tends to be um, of higher value in theory, but the punish game can have major impact on how well you can actually maintain your composure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, how does this actually apply to League of Legends? That's probably a good question. Um,
Great
so
question, Tristan.
Thank you. In League of Legends, right, neutral game is when both teams are trading punches for an even or close to even amount of value. And so, sorry, I already have examples. Probably do the second part first. All good.
Mm.
And then the punish game would be taking multiple turns in a row without trading or losing anything of similar value, right? So for example, blue side team overloads and takes top tier one. red side team does the exact same thing on the bot side of the map. Um, Even though resources are being traded, right, the game is still neutral. Neither team has taken a major lead or advantage, right? They're trading things of very similar value. So the game is still in a neutral state. But let's say if red side team takes Drake after winning a team fight versus blue side team, then they take their top tier one after resetting. Now, right, blue side team is getting comboed. They're getting continuously punished. They need to figure out a play for themselves, most likely on red side's weak side, to try and get something that's high percentage to
Mm.
reset the game and put it in a more neutral state. Because if they do not find a play, right, and they keep matching their opponents,
They're
it's a
gonna lose
losing
out.
formula. They're just gonna
Yeah,
lose the game.
I see.
All right, a little bit about me, right? What's my style? How do I prefer to play the game? I prefer neutral game, right? Um, in pretty much all the games I play, I tend to play standard. Um, because, right, if you think you're the best, then I think the standard way that is proven to win games, right, is normally the way to go. Um, I think it's the case of if you prove that you're strong and you prove that you're the best, right, then your opponents are the ones who feel the pressure. They have to figure something out, right? They have to use more problem-solving skills than you to figure out how to win a game. Um, and I think it's definitely harder to be on that side of or it's harder to be in like that mental state, right? Where you can't play a standard game because you know that you're just gonna lose.
Mm.
If you do, it's very hard to be on that side of a matchup.
Yeah, it's like setting up to lose.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, in my opinion, right? Because there are, of course, other ways to play and win the game. Um, I think the strongest way to play involves letting the game come to you, strictly going for high percentage plays over a long period of time, um, and like suffocating your opponents or like a slow burn.
Mm. Yeah, I like that.
Um, so what does neutral game style look like for players, right? Um, Laners need to be playing safe until their jungler or occasionally other laner can make a play with them. This idea is very important for this style, right? If you guys as laners can't sustain yourselves, it makes it hard to play the neutral game efficiently, right? Because your jungler is now under pressure to make plays to stabilize the map again when they're supposed to be farming. And it's not to say that like jungler never go for plays, but right, they only get so much time on the map. So you certainly
Mm.
don't want to be over forcing stuff, especially when they cannot help you, or else it makes their game harder. Right. Um, Jungler needs to be taking guaranteed gold on the map. Right. Reset your camp timers, so they level up naturally. Try and track the enemy jungler, to spot timers to punish them. Right. If they show on the map, definitely look for invades. Um, Early game should be systematic, not volatile. Early game definitely has, like I feel like I've said this before, but early game has like the most potential for something to go very, very, very wrong.
Mm.
But it's also the point in the game where the most amount of things are figured out. Um, you should have the most amount of information in the early game, because there's only so many things they can do. Um, and there's like generally people call it like lines that their opponents take. And in the early game, there's just less lines, right? Um, Especially if you get early wards in their jungle, it's pretty easy to figure out what they're going for. Um,
True.
Mid games should be high percentage plays. Um, Normally, high percentage plays will be found in side lanes. Sometimes mid though. lots of overloading to minimize the map, right? Um, Normally, if you're ahead, you just want to shove out mid, rotate your bot laners to a side lane that is either even or getting shoved, right? Just overload the
Oh,
map,
sorry, you kind of
start
cut
taking
out.
turrets. Um, and then your laner who was on the weak side can just rotate to mid.
Mm-hmm.
Right, minimizing the map is definitely the easiest way to play the game, and overloading is going to be the most consistent way to secure yourselves objectives, right, during downtime between neutrals.
Okay.
Late guy, late game should definitely be simplified to find your cleanest path to victory, right? Identify your
Mm-hmm.
win condition, um, and just work towards it. So probably lots of grouping for um these late game drakes, or
Mm-hmm.
if that's not the decided win condition, right, really heavily playing into side lanes.
Okay.
Um, oh fuck. All right. Ironically, right, neutral game involves a lot of punishing. Um, Normally, I think the way to think about the punish game in a game like League would be like playmakers, right? Making plays aggressively. They don't exactly need to be high percentage. Um, just because you think it will surprise your opponents or that you have like better hands. So you'll just win a 50-50 scenario because you're better. Um, and obviously, I think that playstyle works even at the highest level for many different kinds of teams. But I think in theory it should just be like more inconsistent. So it's better to just wait, right? Play a longer game, figure out what your opponents are doing, calculate more. Um, right, always plan ahead. um, and just figure out the easiest way to victory,
Mm.
um, rather than going for many plays, and having a bunch that don't work out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so we're talking about champions. What make champions good or bad at playing the neutral game, right? There are lots of things that make champions better at playing a stable game. I think first and also the most important thing is having good laning phase. Normally this comes with some kind of healing, shielding, or range advantage. Um, the next thing, which this is a big thing for solo laners, is the ability to side lane effectively. Solo laners that can't at this point in the game are generally a liability because playing the map is quite strong at this point. Um, I think, especially for mid lane meta these days, there are so many champions that are just generally outclassed by other mid laners because of side lane capabilities. And
Yeah,
even though in previous metas they might have actually been fine, these days
they can't keep up.
they just can't keep up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oriana's definitely fallen into that category, which is really sad.
I think Syndra is also another one that I
Yeah,
always think of.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, Third,
They got replaced with Rise and Talia.
it did get replaced with Ryze and Talia. That's definitely true. Need to be able to team fight effectively, right? Team
Mm.
fighting is a core component of the game. Champions who don't interact well in skirmishes or team fight scenarios are just going to be less valuable.
Mm.
I think the champions who normally come to mind are like either assassin junglers or like the like Irelias and Fioras of the top lane that
Mm. Yeah.
these days tend to struggle more in team scenarios, because they teched so hard into laning and side laning that they struggle to work with their teammates. So they're just generally considered less valuable. Um, Fourth, right, they should have strong one item power spikes, and be able to scale one to games. I think scaling is like a conditional concept, right? Because scaling depends on the specific champions in the game. I think what's not conditional is how good champions feel like on each of their singular item power spikes, and that generally outside of ADC is kind of a really big deal, right?
Mhm.
Especially for junglers, top laners, mid laners. Um, because with the way these roles function these days, especially because generally they are on the more facilitating side as of right now, um, you're just building for each of your individual item power spikes to be as strong as possible every single time, right? You're not going for like a 3 item core or like a 2 item power spike, right? Every single item should be a reasonable power spike these days. Um, and I think champions who don't have that tend to struggle more. Um, and then, right, fifth, some kind of movement ability or tempo cheating ability is always nice. I don't think it's like it's not like a requirement or something, but it is definitely nice to have. I think tempo cheating abilities are always a huge plus on champs. And by like tempo cheating, I mean like, universals. Um, Especially universals that don't have to be casted on your teammates tend to be higher value.
Mm. Rise,
Um,
Twisted Fate, Talia, that kind of thing.
yeah. Pantheon
Not like
Rise.
Valiant. A Pantheon, yeah.
Um, so in League of Legends, right, being a jack of all trades is actually pretty valuable, right? Being able to play every single part of the game. Champions who tech too far into one aspect of the game tend to be worse. That's not always the case, especially if they tech really heavily into laning phase. They can definitely still be viable because if your laning phase is strong enough, to where you're making other champions unviable,
Mm.
there's room to work with there, right? Especially because having a strong early game is always going to be more important than having like a good late game, right? Because the early game is always going to happen. So you're always going to get a chance to showcase your value that you're supposed to have, right? Like that's kind of what I think of when I think of champs like Nico being viable in the meta as like kind of the only lane bully these days.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, obviously with right patch notes and how they do them, any champion could be viable for the neutral game. But some champions should be clearly better than others when the game is balanced. Um, so I made little tier lists of champions that I like.
Oh, this is looking so promising.
Um, these are gonna obviously like these will fluctuate over time based on um well, I guess I would say these lists probably aren't going to fluctuate for me, like in a personal opinion. Um, but like I think having a separate meta tier list also makes sense because obviously these champions will get buffed and nerfed over time. Other champions are going to get buffed, right? Metas change. Um, and so two things can be true, right? Like these champions can be very good at playing the style of game that I prefer. Um, but it is also important to understand the meta and what are key threats, right? And what is getting changed and what looks good. And what are like the potential champions that have been buffed so much that they now fit into this kind of tier list
Mm.
as a
Right.
neutral game champion, at least for the time being, right?
Mm.
All right.
Cool.
And then I think this stuff is more just to make it easier for you guys when you're making decisions in game on what you want to do is these next couple of slides. Um, the theory part of this has like ended. Woo. So order operations, right? It should kind of look like a hook. That's what I was going for. I'm a really bad artist though, so it is
I
what
could
it
see the
is.
hook.
Thank you. All right. So yeah,
Good.
There's definitely a flow to it.
the first thing you want to do, right, is push as far as you can into the enemy map, right, taking resources. Obviously, at the start of the game when you're taking turns, this is probably not going to be very far into their map, right? You're probably
Sure.
going to go as far as like Gromp or Blue or Raptors. You're probably not going anywhere else, you know? Um, but obviously, slowly but surely, right, their map opens up. You can go further and further, right? Um,
Yeah.
right, and in a perfect world, in a perfect turn, right, the second thing you would do is you would take enemy camps, you would take a neutral objective, third, fourth, you would take your own camps, right, and then fifth, you'd reset. Um, Most likely, right, that probably won't happen, right? I'm
Right.
not saying it couldn't, and I'm not saying I haven't done it in a game before, but it's not the most likely outcome that you're actually going to get that in one of your games, right? Um, I'd say it's definitely on the rare side.
For the
Um,
fourth one, would it just be like, uh, I guess a lot of us would just be hanging out to make sure that like they don't invade our jungler since we just took their resources, and then
no,
like we just
no,
reset as
if
a team, or is it just like
no,
me specifically? I just recall and just stand there and smile.
I think
We're maintaining waves.
the yeah, either you're catching waves, cause like on step one, you should be pushing out the waves. Then on
Right.
step two and three, you're using your timer. And then, so step four, if your jungler is taking camps, right, you can probably catch
We're all
waves.
farming.
Yeah.
Or if on step three or two they can test you and it goes poorly for them and they don't
Hmm.
push out the waves, then just take your camps with your jungler to speed up the time and then reset and then you can renew your turn.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
because normally I think when this kind of like if you were actually gonna get a perfect cycle in a game, it'd be later in the game, and so the timing matters a lot more than who is getting the gold unless someone is guaranteed an item, right? And they
I
like
see.
really need the gold.
Hmm.
And it's better to just renew your turn at that point.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, turrets and waves first, right? Well, waves first is like should be the key takeaway. Waves are always first. Um,
Lets us move.
yeah. Then turrets, right? Then their camps, then neutral OBJs, then your camps reset. Sometimes, right? And you see this a lot, especially in the earlier game when you're on a bigger time crunch. You take a tier one and you're like you know their camps are up, and so you just have to decide whether or not you go for their camps or you go for neutral objective, right? I say normally it's best to take the neutral. Um, it's not always true, right? Because sometimes you only have enough time to take their camps, and you'd actually be over tempo if you went for the neutral.
Hmm.
But more often than not, you should prioritize the neutral objective over their camps if you think it's going to be like shady if you go for both.
Okay.
Um, and then I think if your brain works different, I guess it's like an alternative way to think about it. It's like the same similar concept, I guess. I'd probably call it like the same concept. So this is tiers of objectives again. Uh, my drawing skills could probably be better. Um, so right, you guys are blue side. Quick overview, right? Tier one, which is their tier threes in
Their
inhibs, nexus
Nexus.
turrets, nexus. It's the most important tier of objective, right? Think about the game and how you want to take objectives. Um, Much like in order operations, right? Start
Hmm.
with one and move backwards, right, towards four. Um, Now, obviously, for most of the game, you will not be reaching one, but that's how you should be thinking about it.
Hmm.
Uh, I think um, for this, right, don't be so stagnant in the idea that you have to do them in exact order. I think a lot of times, especially after winning a fight, right, you'll have laners tend to waves, jungler will solo a neutral objective, and you'll take um, a tier 2 objective while you're also taking a tier 3 objective. So it's important to not get bogged down in the idea of like, oh, I need to do these things in this order, right? Like, know when it's best to split up and do multiple things.
Mm.
Because I feel like we
Yeah, we don't need
reviewed
to be
enough
5 on everything.
gameplay. Yeah, you don't have to be exactly. You don't have to be 5 on everything. I think we reviewed enough gameplay at this point where that's like become painfully clear.
Hmm.
That it is definitely important to still figure out when it's best to divide and conquer. Um, which is, like I said, normally after winning a fight. Um, yeah, and then just like in the previous one, right? It's okay to skip tiers on a time crunch, right? You don't have to necessarily do everything in order. Um, tier 3 objectives can still be extremely valuable, especially if you're stacking drakes or something. So, all right, and then I still wanted to put something in here about lane swaps, just because I think it's a key component of the game, and we're still not all the way there on it, in my opinion. So like, why do we lane swap, right? Lane swap to get out of bad matchups or bad lane states. It's normally for bot laners, to be honest. Top laners are rarely calling lane swaps because they have a bad matchup these days. It's not to say that it never happens, but normally lane swaps are dictated by bot lane matchup more than anything. Um, unless top lane matchup is like really cooked, and then obviously don't don't sit in the worst matchup ever, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then the other thing is if one of your teammates is very fed, one of your side laners is really fed, right? You just want to rotate them around to the objectives on the map. So you can just lane swap, and it'll be easier for them to have access to the objectives. For lane swaps, right? Conditions to actually do them. One of the two lanes needs to be crashing. It'd be really nice if both of them were crashing, but that is not usually how that goes. Having two pushing side lanes is definitely not the norm.
Hmm.
Um, and for some examples, right, you can use top lane crash, um, while bot lane resets on a bad wave state, and then have your top TP bot to try and fix the lane. Or walk, depending on how bad it is, right? You don't obviously have to use your TP, but or right, bot can slow stack a wave, crash it, reset, walk top without top lane reset, dive their top laner with your jungler, and then top
Hmm.
can reset in TP bot. I think that's a play that's been happening a lot more these days. Is definitely something to be aware of when you're having a lot of early bot push, right? Because I think early bot push should mean you control the game. Um, and so
Can I make
early,
a request
yeah, what's up?
for like the examples for like the lane swaps for I guess like Thursday the next time we meet or Friday or whatever the fuck? Can we like have some video like references or whatever to just go like look at, you know? I just think it would be cool because, like, I know personally, it's kind of hard to call out like lane swapping. I think in my head, so understanding it better, at least individually for me, can help us.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I do have access to a VOD channel, so oh, or like a pro VOD channel or whatever, because they post anyway, it's not a big deal. But yeah, the answer is yes. Um, maybe not by Thursday though. We'll see about that. Uh,
What does it matter if it's like a snippet from like a pro game, you know? Just like, oh, like they actually did this like lane swap that I was talking about in like my slideshow. Like, let's show them like how they did it so we can try to replicate it, you know? As long as we can identify like the conditions for them to do it, and then we can acknowledge it and go, aha, time to replicate that in our games.
Well,
Uh,
PT1 swaps quite a bit.
I mean, I have like games in mind of like pro games, but
Hell yeah.
Mhm.
it's more just like I don't know how much, because that sounds like something that take a bit. So I don't know if I'd have it
Right.
ready by Thursday, but
Oh yeah, for sure. I
I
mean,
definitely know games that I mean I watch a lot of pro. It's not a big deal. Um, but yeah, I think like getting back to my point, early bot push can kind of be used to control the game, right? Because you get a lot of options when you have bot push. You can invade their bot side if your junglers are match cleared. Obviously, like I said, you can initiate a lane swap and overload top. Um, you obviously can go for dive if jungles are not matching clear, depending on their HP bars. I think like, and then of course, if you stay on that side of the map, you always have first access to Drake. Um, so early bot push is kind of like a gateway to map control. Um, and if they lane swap before grubs, I think normally it is best to not reactively lane swap if you're gonna end up being late to the grubs, right?
I see.
Um, if they swap like 2 minutes before grubs, obviously you're gonna end up with enough time to get there if you want to contest it, without ruining your game. But if
Right.
they swap like a minute before grubs and you guys weren't swapping on that same back timer, it is what it is.
Mm.
So,
Find
question,
something else to do.
like, whenever we're wanting to do the lane swap for like grubs, right? Like, let's say we have enough time to
Yeah.
do it, but like the mid laner no longer has teleport. Is it still worth doing? Like, could we just keep the ADC by? Because I imagine like the mid laner is still like stronger than the ADC earlier.
Well, you should normally be swapping with top lane.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
But
same question then. What if they don't have teleport, or does it not matter?
I think you'd put like an asterisk on it, right? Because that should be dictating whether or not you're gonna contest it, right? Does their top have TP and yours doesn't? Um, does their right? Do both their solos have TP and yours both don't?
Mhm.
Um,
What's the condition of bot lane?
what's
Like,
yeah?
what's the state?
What are their sums like? Is our bot
Hmm.
lane ahead? Is their bot lane ahead? Like there's so
Okay.
many conditions at that point that could be favored to us or could be unfavorable.
Yeah.
So it'd more be up to you guys to figure it out in
Yeah,
game,
we'd have to
whether or not you
communicate.
actually think you'd win the grubs fight, right?
Right.
Right.
It's like I don't think I can answer that.
Oh, this is exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I
I mean,
think
the depth is nice to know that it's there. I was
yeah,
just wondering.
figuring
Yeah.
Because
out
sometimes, like, I want to call out, like, hey, like, let's lane swap, but at the same
Hmm.
time, it's just like, oh, but they don't have TP and it feels wrong.
yeah, I
Mm.
mean it's figuring out your conditions. Do you actually think you win the fight? And if you
Mm,
don't know, either go for it and figure out whether or not it's a good play,
Hmm.
or try and see if you can think of something that's better.
Mm. And if you like crash your bot wave properly, then the lack of teleport for the top laner, he can just like walk into lane. It'll be like pretty close to him by the time he
I
gets
think
there.
he's more talking about that they could make it a 5v4, but
yeah.
Oh. Oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were just talking about the swap,
No,
like
no, no, no.
for the
Because, like,
lanes.
in my head, I feel like a lot of the earlier, like, coachings that we've gone through and reviews is, like, turning everything that we can into, like, a numbers game, making the game, like,
Yeah.
not so complicated. So it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, clearly if we have four and they have three, like, why are we not trying to fight for this? You know?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like, if we can like turn it to a 5v4 or whatever, I feel like that would be the better play to do.
I mean, yeah.
Pretty
Maybe I'm just
conditional. Yeah.
slowly becoming too much of a bitch to do like 4v4s. Who knows?
I mean, I
Yeah, I
think
think that would depend on the early game
yeah, I think
too.
you just have to figure it out for
Mhm.
yourselves during the game. I think there are plenty of times where a 4v4 situation is completely winning for one team and completely losing for another team. And there are many times where I also see grubs get pulled and the 4v4 looks extremely even and the team fight or the early skirmish is like insane, right? And it's not a high percentage play for either team, but they still both opt into it anyway.
I see.
I think personally, I probably would not opt into low percentage grub fights, but obviously there are plenty of high level games that you can watch where they do exactly that.
Yeah. Or heralds. They love flipping heralds. It's
Yeah,
random.
or heralds. Yeah, I know exactly
It's
what
so
you're talking
weird.
about. Or autocods actually as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. Otacon's the big one for
Um,
sure.
but that is the end of the presentation. So obviously, I guess we already had a couple of questions, but does anybody else have anything they need to ask, need to figure out?
Just a comment. That was nice. I like that.
No, that was really
Better
solid.
artwork.
Kept me engaged.
Maybe if you can go back to the first couple slides.
Yeah. Like,
Trying to think of it might have been around like 4 or 5.
I did like screenshot some of these slides for my own record, but
I'm trying
I,
to think,
I'm not trying to,
it was more
We got-
towards like
not trying to sell it. Yeah, I don't know.
it goes around. I think it goes around the neutral game
yeah.
where it's like I know where is there ever times because I know you said early game you mostly want to keep it neutral.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have a really bad habit of
Overreaching.
trying to build a lead in the early game with the champions I particularly play, like Nautilus and like Leona and stuff like that. Are there ever situations? I'm assuming there's like some matchups, but are there ever situations where like I should be playing stupid aggressively? Like if we have like a Nautilus Tristana into like a Soraka, some sort of like scaling AD like Jinx. Like, is it still wrong for me to be trying to play the all in the first like 3 levels?
I think it's yeah, it definitely depends on what they pick for sure. There obviously are matchups that are sometimes just really winning, and you can kind of just force them off the wave level 1. I generally think of Corki when I think about that for bot lane these days. Um, but yeah, level 1 matters a lot bot lane, and so if you can recognize that you have a winning one, um, even in high level gameplay, right? Bot lanes will get forced off the first 3 minions and they'll lose the XP. So I don't think it's wrong to play your lane, especially if you're gonna end up having your jungler on the same side of the map as you, um, to like what you think the best way to play it is, right? Because if you think that their bot lane shouldn't get access to the first 3 minions, and that's like, it's like provable, um, then you don't have to give them first, you don't have to give them access to the first 3 minions, um, unless you're getting padded away from. Then I think probably best to not trade a bunch of your HP, right? But as long as you're getting path towards, nah, it's like whatever. I think the biggest thing is if you go for an all-in, it needs to be very high percentage, right? Because if you're choosing to not get a numbers advantage when your jungler is pathing towards you because you think you're all in a 2v2 scenario is that winning, it's that high percentage, right? Um like you just have to be very sure of it, right? Um like yeah,
They
I
can't
think
have their sums up. They can't like have any sort of like escape.
Yeah.
in order
well,
for you to
I think it's
win.
more just like I feel like we go
That's a good question.
I feel like we
Like
go
I
for
go. I do. I feel like I
a
usually go for a
lot
lot of
of low percentage 2v2s or 1v1s, right? Where it is
Yeah.
not certain what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
And that's what you should be trying to minimize. If it is actually that winning, like you can very clearly see how it is going to work out in your favor, then yeah, I mean, it's
Mhm.
not bad to
I'll be right
go
back.
for things that you know are guaranteed,
Mhm.
because then it's high percentage. But
Right.
like, if you're both half HP and your jungler is like a minute away from you, and some sums are traded, and maybe it's not looking super hot, right? Just
Mhm.
wait, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that
Um,
makes sense.
so I think it's like
I'm back.
obviously it's kind of a non-committal
Welcome back.
answer, but I also think it's the truth.
Oh, that makes
Because
sense.
the game is like very nuanced. So
I think honestly, just about every answer to every question is usually like it depends. Hee hee.
Yeah.
No, but
No,
it's
some of
true.
it
There
is
are a
pretty
lot of
cool.
variables past like the 10-minute
I
mark,
think
right?
right. I think it's just learning on like what windows should be taken
Yeah.
advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that we're
And-
more aware of it, I think it'll be like, I don't know, maybe even more clear in the game.
No, yeah, because I feel like a lot of times,
I'm
especially
definitely
when
going
bot
for too
lane,
much.
yeah, especially when bot lane goes south, it's typically because I think I create some sort of advantage and it just does not work out the way I thought it would in my head.
Yeah.
yeah, and at the end of the day, right? This stuff it's important to figure out how to implement it into your game. Um, but scrims are also scrims. Um,
Right.
it's not game day. And so
Mm.
if you go into a scrim set and you get a bot lane matchup that you want, and you think it's really winning, limit test.
Send it. Yeah.
There's nothing
Oh, for
wrong
sure.
with limit testing a little bit. It's a scrim. If you
Yeah,
think
yeah.
your matchup is going to win you the game in the 2v2 because you think it's that good, why not figure out whether or not it's that good?
Makes sense.
And if it doesn't go the way you thought it was going to, then review, right? Why did it not go that way?
Mm. Hell yeah.
Anyway, um, sounds like that's it.
Yeah, that was the only question I really had from the presentation.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I
But
Trying
can't
to
think
jump
of
into
anything
some
else.
flex.
yeah.
Very down.